Okay, what we have here is a shed that I made for my old house. It was in a covered environment at the time, but it's been here 7 years, so it's gotten a little rough. Mainly the issue really is going to be up high, and it's pretty watertight except for the roof. You can see it drips down a little bit. I believe that's oil. So we're going to see what we got in the boneyard to fix it up. Mainly just bring the top of the roof up and out so it drains down. As you can see, we're at an angle here, so that's where we'll start. Okay, now that we have it face down, and we're looking at the top of it. This piece here is still intact. We can button it down, and I'm thinking what we'll do is put a strip up here so it's raised up, and then so we can go down at an angle so it'll come out past this. Okay, looking at it, it's still in good condition, just a little loose. So we're going to use a staple gun, which I highly recommend. If you're wondering if it has any power to it, it does. It's adjustable here. There's your readout. So it's usually crank the max, depending on what you need it for. Okay, it's the next day on our cabinet. Let's see, what I've done is painted the top, primered and painted it, because it's solid and intact, but it was just a little rough, as you can see. As also concerned about these cracks, I'm probably going to put another coat directly into the cracks. And the backside was aged as well, and also we have these knots here. They would come undone and they were going to split eventually, so just dumped a whole bunch of paint in there as well. Do one last coat, and I may end up doing the whole thing, more than likely. If you're wondering what these lines are, they're just little curve cuts, relief cuts, because when I got the wood, it wasn't perfect. And there's been an issue of these doors fully seating, and I believe it's because of these latches. I put it inside and outside. I actually did cut a little hole there for clearance. I did that for security reasons, because it was outside in a unsecured area, and I did have some electronics, rechargeable tools. So what we're going to do is take these latches out, or here anyway, and try placing them both on the outside so there's no gap. And as you can see, it's warped to hell. Those boards there, those 1x2s, were there to help strengthen it, straighten it out, and it did a bit, but you know, that was years ago. Since it's just gotten more warped. So what we'll do is we'll take off those 1x2s, examine it then. Maybe it'll help if we flip the door the other way. If not, we'll see. Okay, taking off the boards. Didn't change shape in any way. But as you can tell, this is the inside side here. Meaning where it latches together with the other door. And that part is considerably more bowed than the other side. So I'm thinking of putting the hardware on the other side. Let's try that. Now that we have the door flipped inside out and reversed, we can see it is bladder over there, and then this is where it bows up, so we can put the hardware here. That'll help seal it. I think part of the issue was doing that one side of the hinge inside and one out. So you can see here, it had to be bent to make it work. Another issue is this right here. See that 3/4 inch plywood? See, it was bowed when I bought it. I couldn't find a perfect one, and I put, I'm not sure if you could see, but some curve cuts when I put it together. But I think just weathering just made it worse. So we're gonna have to figure something out for this. Maybe just a longer hinge, I don't know. Gonna experiment, put the hinges on the inside. Some of the hardware was rusty, so I hit it with the wire brush, cleaned it off, and hit it with some bare metal primer. It's called Rust-Oleum bare metal primer. And it's for lightly rusted. Okay, it's not quite dry yet. But let's just move on to sanding and painting the cabinet. Here we have the cabinet. I've started off here in this section. And I'm just going to go through it real quick. Show you how I do it. I'm paying attention to the imperfections, like the knot, getting this out. And when I say sand, I mean use the barbecue grill brush. This works excellent. For our purpose here, it's an outdoor cabinet, so we're not building heirloom furniture. Paying attention to where the boards were. It's darkened. Okay, on to painting. What we first want to start in is these knots. Just blobbing it on. And also the surrounding areas. So what we've done here is dipping our paintbrush, our foam paintbrush roller, and using it to push in the paint, and then we're going to roll it out. And as you can see, there's some little tiny holes. Try and fill those in. And then also, if you remember, the hinge marks and also the marks from the screws that went in the wood. One's right there. We've let our boards dry overnight. And it came out good. As you can see, I filled our little chips and holes with a lot of paint. This one here to help keep it from splintering, and also on the edges too, all around. And also where there's a chip, as you can see, the knots. This is the bottom corner. As you can see right there, that wood is split. So what I've done is I took a screw and a washer just to get it to hold it in place, and it works very well. And I've hit the hinge cut out with some of the white primer. And the reason why is because we're going to be relocating those hinges since we're changing the sides of the door. And then down here on the bottom, I went and took a wire brush and got whatever blackness was on there. Down here. And what we're going to be using to make up for that gap there is this plumber's putty. I don't have any wood putty, but this should work well. I mean, it's water resistant, and like I said before, this isn't an heirloom piece. This hinge here as well, and big holes. We're going to fill those with plumber's putty as well. Here we've filled in the gap with plumber's putty on this wood cabinet shed. And as you can see, it's filled in that gap from the hinge nicely. Here on the other side. Now, I don't know how long this takes to dry, or if it'll cure completely, because I don't think that's what it's for. But we're gonna go ahead and do that, let it dry, and then hit it with some paint. Okay, and these hinge fillers, plumber's putty, didn't really seem to cure it. I mean, they've been in place about 2 hours. So what I've done is hit them with that Rust-Oleum white primer. I believe that's going to harden it up. And then we'll go over it with the regular paint, which is the Valspar with rollers. So this is dried overnight. the plumber's putty, and I painted it. Now it's not hard, but I can tell it's curing. It's getting there. Done it here as well too, since there was a gap. Okay. And as you can see, I painted the rails and stiles of the box. So the next thing to do is going to be the sides. Okay, since the other paint is a black, it was an interior. I didn't realize that at the time. I'm going to go ahead and apply this bare exterior barn and fence paint. And yeah, I've never even heard of this before, but okay, I painted this one with it. Let me put some light on it. And now we're gonna go over to the one that hasn't been painted yet. See, there's a little smudging there from what I was resting it on, these little pots. And I've done a little bit section here with the barn paint. When we move along, we can see where it stops, where it's sturdy. A heavy coat, just a small section at a time. We're not going to film the whole thing, but give you an idea. And it's really helpful, thick coat with this type of wood. It's not perfect. And then with these sections, just like to dip it in there, go along like that. And then if you can see, this one's a bit cracked. So we're just gonna work, push it up, because this is gonna help seal it. Okay, let's finish this door up. And once we do, we'll flip the other and start on that. I'm using the light here. Make sure we don't miss anything. Along the edges here, supporting it with my finger. And we're doing small sections at a time. For this wood, since there's all kinds of cracks in it, this 4-inch foam roller is good. I have the large one, but it won't work as well on this particular project. I did apply 2 coats with that paint primer, but it was an interior paint. So which is going to work fine as our base coat. And I never even heard of this, but I didn't know Bear had this. Barn and fence paint. I mean, that's what barn paint is, milk paint, as far as I know. That milk paint just came as a powder. If you've never seen it, that's when, way back, I guess, when paint first came out, you bought a powder and actually mixed it with milk. Okay, we have the cabinet of our shed. I believe it was 3 days ago. I've been waiting on that paint. Now it's here. And this little plumber's putty experiment here. Yeah, I think it's setting. Seems to be a little bit harder, but I mean, who knows? We'll see. But it should be okay. Once comes, well, after we put on the next coat here of the barn paint, I'm thinking it'll be in better shape. See, I'm feeling it, and it does feel harder than it did 3 days ago. All right, I'm gonna start now with the barn paint. Okay, this is the bottom edge. And I put some there, paint there. Just kind of dropped it in, put a heavy load. Like that. And roll it over. Okay, here on the putty part, that's going to have to go on very lightly. Okay, I'll stop filming for a little while and we'll see the results. Okay, we're done here. Put the coat on each side of the doors. This one appears to be dry, almost. This one's still slightly wet. So we're going to move on to the main housing unit, cabinet rather, and check that out. Okay, here's one coat of the barn paint. I believe this is all we're gonna need since we have two base coats on top of the previous coats. Okay, we're gonna flip this now and do the back side. Okay, we're in the back side of the cabinet. Just wanted to show you how we're going heavy on the coats here. You can see the difference without it. And we'll be doing that to the whole entire back side. It's the next day. Cabinet's nice and dry. This paint did well. Seemed to cover everything. Just gonna drop it down, look at the face, and if everything's good, we'll install the hardware on the doors. We gotta drill all new holes for this and for relocating the doors. Okay, we have the doors of the cabinet, and as you can see, there's a gap. I knew there would be some offset since we're switching things around, but yeah, I knew I didn't cut it straight at the time. Like I said, I don't know, so like 15 years ago, and didn't have a straight edge, I'm sure, maybe a few beers, but as you can tell, it changes everything. Let's see, there's that, you can see the gap, so we're gonna have to end up cutting, that's better, trimming some off on this side, and as you can see, this is good enough. We'll put the hinge where it's flush, right here. And we'll go to the other side. And as you can see, this door has to be on this side. And that's why, because you remember the warped wood. But this is planned out for this to be the hinge side. You can see it's going to close it. This side is really not bad. Let's see, like a little bit right here is going to be needed trimmed. Yeah, this is fine. So for the gap here, I'll just put some rubber seals on either side to keep the water out. And also I'll be making a roof. and I'll have a gutter system. You can see there's a piece of the gutter there that's left over from my old house, and we're putting it top there. A little roof with some PVC roofing. Alright, let's get this cut. Before we cut, I thought I should mention that since this is plywood, we're going to be using plywood specific blade. I don't recall the name of it. Something Life. This is 100 teeth, and they use it for PVC and plywood. Here's my all-around general purpose framing. This is 24 tooth Diablo, which I highly recommend. I wouldn't recommend using this on this. Don't even try it, because you're just gonna eat up the wood. As good as it is, it's not made for that. It's made for general thicker plywood, 2x4s, etc. Okay, now I've marked it out, scribed it, and the big thing here is to put weight down on it, because as you remember, this is warped. So I got like 50 pounds of lead ingots here on one corner, and about 10 pounds of stone over here on the other corner. So it should work out pretty well. We'll see. And also wanted to mention, before you're using it, or after each use, it's up to you, sand it down with some 2000 grit to get off whatever's left over, resin. Brake clean, and a brush. It really helps. Okay, did a good job with the Ryobi. Let's see. Okay, it's right here. You can still see some pencil marks. So what I'm gonna do, take my chisel and shave. If it's deep, don't chunk it out. Just kind of skate it a little bit at a time. Okay. And as you can see here, these marks, that's from the saw. And I think because it's fresh paint and also burning of the heated paint, just kind of rubbed it in there. So put it all along, we can just go and scrape the black edges, or also sand it before we paint it again. And it should be okay. Okay, I'm going to continue this, then we'll test it. Okay, other than touch-up paint, we're done painting the cabinet. Now, there's a gap in between the door where they shut. So what I've done is taken some, I guess this is, call it flashing. It's just decorative trim. At my old house, it was a sunroom I had put on. And so I've cut out this section here, this piece, as you can see, and I'm applying it to the inside of the door. So I have this piece over here, which is going to fit here. Now I'm utilizing the hinge holes for the door that were there beforehand. And I'll be putting probably 2 of these here and over here, because as you can see, there's a bit of a gap, so it's got to be sealed up. Last time I used my cutoff wheel with the very thin blade. This time I'm going to give it a try with the skill saw. This is thin metal, 36 teeth per inch, and let's see, yeah, let's get this started. Okay, instead of making a new one, I just used the rest of the strip. As you can see, it was angled, right? So I'm using that little part. You can see the difference here in width. So what I'm doing is I'm just laying it up with this and then moving the bolts in closer. I want to point out that the jigsaw blade, it worked great. I mean, it just cut right through it. No ragged ends, like you can compare it to a cutoff wheel. So much better. We're done with the flashing. We had to use smaller screws. As you can see here, they were long. Chopped them off with the jigsaw. And also here, I overlapped the pieces. Also applied thread locker, because these aren't the best bolts. Let's go test fit it now. Okay, sprinkled just a little bit this morning, and whatever that stain was, it's bleeding through. This barn paint, I don't think it's not the best. So we're gonna get an exterior paint tomorrow, but I wanted to show you what I've done so far. Let's take these hinges off. We haven't put those on yet. And I just wanted to show what I did with that flashing, because there was a gap, if you recall. And it works great. The inside didn't get wet, even though it was laying flat. Like I said, it was a light sprinkle. So in the interest of moving forward, I went ahead and put these rails on here, because this is going to have a roof. You can see it's slightly angled. And this is what we're going to put on top. Cut it to size, paint it gray, because that'll match the tiles. It's kind of a gray-blue slate. So let's go ahead and get that started. Okay, this is the result after 2 coats of primer. Seems to have gone away with the staining. And for the metal here, I'm using the Rust-Oleum metal primer along with the gloss white. And it's worked really well. Still curing. Now I painted the other door with the Rust-Oleum paint, which will show. Just wanted to show before painting it. Okay, again, here's the door before painting. And from what I can see, There's slight staining still bleeding through, but already done 2 coats. I wouldn't really compare it to the finished. So this is with 1 coat of the Rust-Oleum. And here's what we're using. Ultra cover semi-gloss. It is interior and exterior. Okay, now the doors are coated with the Rust-Oleum on the back side. That turned out well. So I'm just going to continue with the rest of it. Slap 1 coat of Rust-Oleum on the sides and the top and on the base. So let's get that started. Okay, we have the coat of Rust-Oleum, the top, and on the bottom rails. So while this is drying, we're going to go ahead and cut our roof panel. As you can see, I put some 3 boards here and a 2x2 that I already had pre-painted, pre-primed for chicken coop. And you can see, just to get a slight angle for the water to drip down past. I'm going to set that up